Like we said in the past few episodes, there is a ton to break down coming out of this trade deadline. Now let's take a look specifically on some of the prospects that we got in return.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, Carter, we've talked about it a ton. We've talked about these prospects, but man, there is still a mountain of stuff to get into. And I think, honestly, that we're going to have to start with this Yusei Kikuchi stuff, because this is the one that everybody's sort of, lending their eyes to. Just before we get into that, as always, I'm Braden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasko, Carter First too, for all your updates on stuff going on with the Toronto Blue Jays as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. There's been a ton of you guys subscribing lately, and it's been really, really nice to see. Like we said, it helps us out a ton, pushes our content out there as well. It keeps you guys up to date with all the Blue Jays information, keeps us at the top of your page. As well, there's a little bit of a bell icon you can hit on YouTube if you're watching there as well, listening through YouTube. And it gives you notifications. So when one of our videos or lives or anything goes on, you will be notified immediately with the content. And yeah, Carter, I guess just before we get into that, it's been a crazy week, and we've talked about how sort of nuts this week has been with the trade deadline going on. But man, just going back to sort of some of the stuff we talked about yesterday, it's just been a ton of fun.
Yeah, it's a very exciting trade deadline for the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously not where you want to be. You want to be contending for a playoff spot in the late stages of July, early stages of August. But here we are. The Blue Jays made the best of what the situation that they were dealt. Obviously, a lot of players did not have very good years. Ross Atkins didn't build a very good team. So you look at the trade deadline, you had to get rid of expiring pieces, and you got rid of every single one. You got prospects in your turn, you got players to bolster the bullpen, then you get rid of Nate Pearson, you get rid of IKF as well. Nate Pearson was a little bit of a weird one. IKF you sell high on, definitely like that move. So yeah, you can't really complain from what Ross Atkins has done in regards to the trade deadline. But you take a step back, you look at this entire season in totality. Ross Atkins definitely has not set this team up for success, and it was definitely a torment and a horror story watching this Toronto Blue Jays team play baseball for this entire season.
It really has, and that's the sad part, right? Yeah, we're getting happy with the trade deadline. But in the end, it just sucks to think that where we could have been, or maybe where we should have been in comparison to this season. Going forward, Carter, obviously we got a lot of guys in return from these trades, and I think we start there, to be honest with you. Maybe we're going to give you guys a breakdown on sort of what some of these guys' statistics are. What is the possibility? Like what's their ceiling here with some of these players? And I think, like I said, we start with this Yusei Kikuchi trade. We're gonna do some guys every day to sort of get through them. We don't want to overload you guys with information on all these players. So we're gonna start with the Yusei Kikuchi trade. Of course, that's Jake Bloss, Will Wagner, and Loperfido as well. So Carter, the one guy that I really want to start with, and maybe I know you were thinking that we should start with Loperfido. He played today. But surprisingly, he's not the guy I'm most excited about. The guy I'm most excited about is debatably ranked number 1 or number 3 in the Blue Jays prospect system, depending on where you look. Fangraphs has him listed as number 1. The MLB itself, Pipeline, has him labeled as number 3. And, of course, Jake Bloss has had a stint in the majors so far this year. His stint in the majors was with the Astros. He's 0-1 on the season, no wins, 1 loss, 6.94 ERA with 3 games started. So there's a no decision in there as well. 11 2/3 innings pitched, 5 home runs given up with a 3.14 average against. He has a 1.63 whip. Just going back to his minor league stats from 2024 as well, he went 4-2 with a 1.64 ERA, 13 games started, 66 innings pitched, 3 home runs given up, an average against of 140, Carter, and then a whip of 0.79. So, the minor league stats really pop off the page to you, and I think he just didn't, only getting 3 games started in the majors so far. Obviously, that's a very rough sample size, especially, going up to the trade deadline, everything else, involved in that. So, I think that this guy's ceiling is pretty high. He's a guy that Astros fans are really not happy about, to say the least, that they lost. We had a couple of them in the comments saying that the trade would have been won by the Toronto Blue Jays if it was just Jake Bloss, never mind everybody else in return as well. So looking at this, Carter, this is the guy. Why I'm most excited for this guy is the upside. I think you see the potential in this kid, and I'm hoping that he maybe gets a start sometime this season with this Toronto Blue Jays team, and then maybe you look at him if he succeeds and continues to succeed. This is a guy that maybe you debate throwing in the lineup until Alek Manoah gets back off of his injury stint. Do you think that's a possibility?
Definitely is a possibility. You might see him this year. You're definitely going to see him at some point next year. The Blue Jays took a little bit of pressure off him, which is nice with the Ryan Yarbrough trade. If you want to plug and play somebody, Ryan Yarbrough is your guy. Don't necessarily need Jake Bloss to start. But then again, looking at the double-edged sword here, these games don't really matter. You might as well get some major league experience. Again, Jake Bloss has looked really good in the minor leagues. A very short major league stint. Hasn't really pitched that effectively. Again, 3-game sample size. Nothing too crazy there. But this guy's pitch mix is it's exciting to see. It's touted as being a middle starter, whether it's a 2, 3, 4. You can get any sort of guy to lug innings, and that's what Jake Bloss looks like he's about to do because he has quite the pitch mix over here. So just going over it, he has a 4-seamer, a slider, curveball, a sweeper, a changeup, and a sinker. Not really throwing the sinker a whole lot, but his fastball's usually sitting at 93.4. That's what they got the average at here. Very good against right-handed batters. Just Jake Bloss is going to be an interesting prospect to look at down the line. Looking at how he was with the Houston Astros, just a very good AAA talent. You look at him, could start this season, probably going to start next season, like you said, in absence of Alek Manoah. I see that as being a very good fit. Again, it really depends on how this rest of the season goes, how the spring training goes. You got the off season, could be making some moves or starting pitching. Don't necessarily see that as this team needs to address so many other things compared to starting pitching. But Jake Bloss, like you said, Jake Bloss for Yusei Kikuchi, a lot of analysts were saying that would have been a win for the Toronto Blue Jays straight up. You get Loperfido, you get Will Wagner. This was a very good trade for the Toronto Blue Jays. Again, they're not as proven as Yusei Kikuchi. Yusei Kikuchi's completely turned his career around in the last 2 seasons. Jake Bloss could go and he could look like again, knock on wood here, he could look like the Houston Astros 2024 pitcher that just had a 6.6 ERA. Didn't look amazing. Again, this guy's only 23 years old. You got to give this guy a little bit of time, but prospects are risks. You can't necessarily just rely on these guys. You can't say Jake Bloss is going to be this huge superstar. He's going to have to prove it. He's going to have to prove it to Toronto Blue Jays fans. He's going to have to back it up with his stats and his play on the field. But definitely a great prospect to have. As, again, you look at your prospect rankings, he's top 3 in those rankings. The ones that I've seen, I've had Ricky Tiedemann and Aroldis Martinez ahead of him. Even so, top 3 prospect. You're definitely not going to complain about that, especially when they're in the current spot the Blue Jays are at this trade deadline.
Yeah, right. This was a move to restock the prospect pool. If it is for trades or if it is for, really just revamping it. I mean, this was some moves that need to be made. We got a comment the other day, Carter, or I think it was on the last video, that said, "How do people think that the Blue Jays quote unquote fleece the Astros?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? This was the best deal of the entire trade deadline, debatably, I guess. But by far, the Astros lost this trade, and it was brutal. The amount their point is that these guys may not be major league talent. Well, Loperfido is playing in the majors right now. Jake Bloss probably will get a start at some point towards the end of this season and into next season. And who knows? Will Wagner really looks great too. We'll get into him, I think, in the next segment. But just I don't know, some very weird comments. I think if you're hating on this trade, I just don't believe that you're a Blue Jays fan almost. I feel like you're just hating to hate. And to me, that just, at some point, we know where we're standing as Blue Jays fans. So you got to be able to understand the position you're in. And the position we're in is winning this trade in this trade deadline. And so you have to be happy about it. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to whine and complain for another year or the rest of this season just about how bad the Blue Jays were? I'm finding some positives here. At least we won a trade pretty handily here. So anyway, Carter, that's a little bit of my rant. Moving into Loperfido, of course. I'll send it back to you to go over some of his stats this season.
For sure. I'm just going to quickly touch on the Jake Bloss stuff and just how he apparently lost this trade. The only thing, I try to look at this from both sides. The only thing I can kind of give the other side of the argument is that if the Blue Jays were planning on extending Yusei Kikuchi, But again, you look at this prospect system, you look at these team needs. Starting pitching isn't necessarily one of them. You're going into next year. Say this trade never happened. You got Yusei Kikuchi. Say he does come back. You rerun it back. You got your 5 starters. You got Alek Manoah as another guy. But again, you're looking at this from a broad perspective. You need outfielders. You need more pitching depth. Again, you look at the trade deadline, it doesn't really show that as 11 out of the 13 prospects you got or fielders. But going back, like, again, it's tough to look at this trade right now because, again, this trade happened literally like 3 days ago. Like, how are we going to say winners and losers right now? If the Astros go on and win a World Series, they might be the winners. That's the end goal. You want your team to win a World Series, and Yusei Kikuchi can help them in any way to accomplish that goal. You got to give them their flowers. But then looking back at it, you just ride out Yusei Kikuchi's contract, you don't trade him, and then he leaves in the offseason. What's the whole point? Why did we just do nothing with them? So at least you get something back for them. You got players that have very high upsides. So looking back at this trade, I don't know if you could say that there is a winner or a loser on paper. If players' trends work out to be how they are looking out to be right now, it looks like the Toronto Blue Jays should win this trade. That's why, again, we look at the Houston Astros fan pages, you look at comments, you look at just the reaction to the Dana Brown trade of Yusei Kikuchi. They're not happy about it. They hate that they lost Joey Loperfido. They hate that they lost Jake Bloss. Will Wagner's a guy that actually could end up starting again at the end of the season as well. So you have 3 players that could start for your major league team before this season's even up. Again, that kind of goes to show where the Toronto Blue Jays are at with their players. But again, when you have 3 players that can have major league experience, major league talent, 3 players are better than 1. So if you're looking to retool for 2025, that's definitely going to be a good start for that. But looking into Joey Loperfido, I mean, he started today, number 2 hitter for the Toronto Blue Jays, goes 1 for 5, 2 strikeouts, but he did hit that single very hard into the opposite field, a left-handed bat. So he hammered that into right field. I think it was 105 off the bat. Definitely nice to see from Joey Loperfido. Anything that he can do positively right now, again, 1 game, very small sample size. We'll be looking forward to watching this guy perform for the rest of the season. But kind of going into this guy a little bit here, Joey Loperfido was a 7th rounder in 2021. Just his prospect rankings has just been surging ever since then. Has some very good seasons. In AAA this season, he's slashing 272 with a 365 on base percentage and a 568 slugging with 13 home runs, good for a WRC plus of 121. Obviously, the average being 100, so he is above league average hitter. That's what you like to see, making a lot of good catches in the outfield. There's just one that I saw just from his highlight tape, just going into the right field corner, jumps, robs a home run, almost like, don't want to say Kevin Pillar-esque, but it was looking like a little bit of Kevin Pillar was in there. Power hitter, a guy that has very high upside, already started with major league team. That's usually a pretty good sign. He played a few games with the Astros as well, so has some major league service time. You can't get mad about this trade. You can't get mad about this player. Jake Bloss looks unbelievable on paper. Joey Loperfido has looked really good as well. A very young guy, obviously drafted in 2021. Just it's going to be fun to see some of these prospects, especially now. It's one of those things where you look at prospects and you think, oh, you're not going to see these guys for 2-3 years. We're in a good spot where we're going to see our prospects from these trades, maybe all 3 of them right now this season. So it's definitely fun to see like the fruit of your labor, what you had to give up, and the assets are actually going to play for the Toronto Blue Jays in 2024.
Yeah, and again, he's only 25 years old. It's not like this is a, older guy that you just got as a throw-in piece. Joey Loperfido could very well and is showing that he's developing into an MLB player. And, with the stats that Carter mentioned already, I mean, it's going to have to be a wait and see, as you said before, Carter, but I think he looks really, really good. He looks very sound in the outfield. His bat looks pretty solid. I think that there is a need of some development there. But I think he's a guy that can. He has all the assets. It's just putting it together. And I think a guy that doesn't have a ton of major league service time. I think that this is a guy that very well could put it all together and be a piece for this team going into next season. Will that be the case? Who knows? I mean, at the end of the day, a guy like Joey Loperfido might be a great trade piece going into the offseason to see what can happen there. But again, we'll have to wait and see. There's a ton going on with all these trades and all these pieces. And, we're giving sort of our thoughts. And like Carter said, some of these guys are going to play this year. Joey Loperfido, Jake Bloss, Will Wagner. I would love to see him up for a couple games this season. And I think it's on the ticket that it's probably going to happen. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be those games that we're locked into. And like I said, he does know Davis Schneider a little bit as well. They played against each other. So, a little bit of, he knows a couple guys already. So the comfortability factor, maybe that'll help him sort of, ease in. That is a tough game. I mean, you just get traded, you get brought in, and you get thrown right into the lineup. It's tough. So you're going to have to just give this guy a bit, see what he can do over the next few weeks here with this ball club. Carter, we still have a ton more to get into here, especially Will Wagner. We got to talk about him. And then you have a couple things coming out of, what Yusei Kikuchi had to say about being traded at this deadline. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. When you're taking in America's pastime, don't forget to hydrate with Liquid IV's Popsicle Firework flavor, a surefire summer hit. If you can, prep some. As you guys know, we are super big fans of Liquid IV. This is actually the first time I'm doing their ad, and they are awesome. I actually just ordered a bunch myself. Because it is perfect. It's a perfect, as you know, guys know, we like to, get after a little bit in the summer here, and hydration is always a key. We got some big golf matches. We can't, on Sundays, and we can't be hurt and going into those golf matches. So Liquid IV is that perfect, sort of re-energizer for us. Powered by live HydroSense, an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. That's 20% off your first order when you shop Better Hydration today using promo code MLB at liquidiv.com.
Order supplies from the website that's made for the skilled trades. Find thousands of parts from hundreds of brands in just a couple clicks at supplyhouse.com. Supplyhouse.com gives you 24/7 access to a huge selection of plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with fast delivery anywhere in the U.S. Need help with an order? Give industry-leading after-sales service for their friendliest and knowledgeable folks in the business. I talk to a real person every time. And there's great news for plumbers, technicians, and contractors. Being a pro has its perks. The trade industry professionals can join their free Trade Master program for free shipping and serious discounts on every order. Over 100,000 pros already trust the Trade Master program to deliver its results. Apply for your membership today and get a competitive edge on every order at supplyhouse.com/TM. Save money and time when you order online. Order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service.
So, Carter, we talked about a couple of these guys from the Yusei Kikuchi trade as it sort of happened. One guy we still need to get into is Will Wagner, and we have some stuff coming up here from what Yusei Kikuchi had to say as being dealt at this deadline. It was sad to see him go. I don't want to brush over that. Yusei Kikuchi was a big part of this team. He was one of the guys that me and Carter loved watching because you never know what he was going to bring to the table. The guy could throw 13 strikeouts. He could, he could give up a ton of runs, but man, he was a fun guy to watch. And we were huge fans of him. Just getting into Will Wagner now before we hit on those Kikuchi topics a little bit. I got Will Wagner's minor league statistics from this season, batting a .307 with a .424 on-base percentage, a .429 slugging, and an .853 OPS. He also has 5 home runs and 41 RBIs on the season in the minor leagues. We'll have to wait and see what he does, obviously, with this Toronto Blue Jays team, and if he sees any major league time this year. This is another guy, Carter, I think that is just very undervalued. I mean, you start to look at what some of the analysts are saying, and they're giving nothing but high praise to Will Wagner. I mean, he had a great guy to learn from, Billy Wagner, obviously. So talking baseball sense, everything like that. So we always say, right, when some of these guys grow up around the stadium and grow up around the ballpark, it just ingrains something into you, right? And I think that's what probably Will Wagner got as well. So he will be added to the list of obviously ex-Blue Jay Kevin Biggio, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette. All these guys had ex-professional baseball dads. So it's sort of another cool piece to add to this puzzle that is the Toronto Blue Jays roster.
100%. For me, I knew a lot about Joey Loperfido and Jake Bloss, just obviously from their major league service time, just watching baseball. Will Wagner was one of those guys that I didn't really know as much. Haven't seen him play a lot of baseball, but just looking at the stats is really all we can do until he does get some service time with the Bisons in AAA. But looking at Will Wagner, like you said, a promising prospect. He has been absolutely mashing recently. just going complete. Like it's fun to watch. And that's another reason why you should get excited for this trade. A left-hander. He's playing first base / second base a lot of the time. He's hitting 307, 424 with a 429 slugging, 5 home runs in 70 games in AAA, an 18th round pick in 2021. Interesting there. Just another one of those guys, a little diamond in the rough, looking to show out for the Toronto Blue Jays. But since May 23rd, Will Wagner is slashing .415 with a .510 on base percentage and a .646 slugging. During that span, he's collected 34 hits, including 11 extra base hits. Left-hand, I just remember a time in Toronto Blue Jays land where we needed a left-handed hitting so badly. Still sort of needed a little bit, but now you got Spencer Horwitz. Now you got Daulton Varsho. Now you got Joey Loperfido. You'll have Will Wagner throughout the system. A ton of guys that you have possibilities of seeing right-handed pitching a whole lot. Having left-handed batters in your lineup can spice some things up. It's definitely nice to see. He is 26, so he is a little bit older in the system. That's why a lot of analysts are saying that you might be able to see Will Wagner at some point in this season. But another guy to get excited about, another guy that puts the barrel on the ball a lot of the time. It's just you look at this trade, and I just don't understand why people are mad about it. You've got 3 players that could make a huge impact on your season very immediately. Will Wagner being the worst of the 3 and still having a very good season, OPS over 800. So really nothing for me to complain about. Again, we got to see how these guys perform, how they pan out. But looking at Will Wagner, when you got a dad as coveted as Billy Wagner, usually you have a few tips and tricks that not a lot of other people have access to. So hopefully you can use that to elevate his career. Hopefully you can use that to make a positive difference for the Toronto Blue Jays. And I'm looking forward, again, I know I've said this before about this trade, but we are both fired up about this trade. Obviously, how can't you be? So I'm going to be hopeful about Toronto Blue Jays land that you just haven't had a lot of hope this season. So Will Wagner being the worst, I guess you could say, out of the 3 prospects we got in return, definitely not something that I'm going to complain about.
Yeah, we always talk about, right, as Blue Jays fans, it's sometimes where we start to get angry and then we're angry at everything. And I think at this point in the season, find little things to be excited for. Have fun, watch baseball, be excited about trades. You know, it's not every day that your team makes a huge splash at the deadline, if good or bad. So, I don't know, just have fun, watch some baseball, have some drinks with your friends, have them down to watch the Jays games, even if it's to joke around and you know, look how bad this team is. It's fine. Just have fun watching baseball. I'm going to a Winnipeg Goldeyes game. I don't know. I think they're classified as a single A team, would it be, I guess, Carter? And you know, I'm going with my family out on Sunday, and I'm just gonna have a good time. I'm gonna have a couple beers. I'm gonna get probably a hot dog or a slice of pizza. Just enjoy baseball while it's here, especially at this time of the season. You know, it's not quite playoffs yet. You don't got to worry about, oh, the Toronto Blue Jays aren't there. Just watch some baseball. Maybe throw some bets on them like that. I'm gonna do the same. I've been betting on FanDuel this whole week. Just, you know, trying to stay in the season, stay in the game. And that's what I say. That's why I'm really can't be that upset about these trades. And when people come into the comments and they're all upset, I hear them out. Don't get me wrong, because, you know, we were in that position where we were, you know, pretty upset about everything that was going on, and still are. But I'm trying to find a little bit of the little bit of the light at the end of the tunnel, I guess, if you want to call it that. I'm just trying to be excited and stay happy that at least we do get to watch baseball here in Blue Jays land. Carter, as we talked about, Yusei Kikuchi, huge part of this ball club, huge part of like our lives. I mean, we talked about Yusei Kikuchi all the time. He was a guy that, you know, we were sort of jokingly making fun of him the first year because he was not doing too well, but, you know, a guy that we were backing, and then we said, hey, maybe he has a bounce back, and then he had an insane bounce back, and then he comes back this season. It's pretty good most of the season. Had a bit of a drop off at the end there. But Carter, I just really want to know what he had to say about being traded.
100%. Yusei Kikuchi, it was sad seeing him in his Houston Astros press conference. He looked so depressed, and I felt so bad for him. But, I mean, at least he's on a winning team now. He has a chance to compete for the playoffs. Toronto Blue Jays aren't, unfortunately, going to give him that opportunity. But with Yusei Kikuchi, he loved Toronto. He really embraced the city, just took it all in, fought for the entire country. Obviously, that's an experience that you only get with one team in the MLB. We have an entire country behind you. The Canadians love Yusei Kikuchi. It's obviously coming off of a really bad 2022. So again, I said this on the podcast before, but this I believe was last week. So I'm going to go over it again. Yusei Kikuchi stats as a Blue Jay, keeping in mind this is with his 1 million ERA in 2022, with all of his advanced stats looking horrendous. So in 86 games pitched, he has thrown 384 innings. He has given up 191 earned runs, 435 strikeouts to 136 walks, about a 3.5 to 1 strike to walk rate, a 4.48 ERA, again, a little bit inflated due to his 2022, a 1.35 whip. Just a guy that in 2023 and 2024 was so effective for the Toronto Blue Jays, was one of the best left-handed pitchers in all of baseball in 2023 in that back half, and did really well again this season. Again, fell off a little bit in his last few games started. That's why we kind of thought on this podcast that his value might diminish. Apparently not. Dana Brown loves what he's seeing in Yusei Kikuchi, and that arm is electric. He does have electric things. As we've been watching this entire season for Toronto Blue Jays, Yusei Kikuchi is not a bad pitcher, and that's a narrative that I kind of want to get into before I go into Yusei Kikuchi and what he said about leaving the Toronto Blue Jays. Yusei Kikuchi is not a bad pitcher. I guess the Houston Astros, they gave up a ton for him. This guy's arm is electric. His curveball, his slider, the fastball, velo. You're not really finding a lot of arms like Yusei Kikuchi. The Houston Astros are acting like they got like Wes Parsons from the Toronto Blue Jays, acting like they got 2022 version of Yusei Kikuchi, just a bunch of pitchers that just were not very good. And Yusei Kikuchi is a very good pitcher. The Houston Astros are going to love Yusei Kikuchi and what he can do for that organization. So this narrative that Yusei Kikuchi is just not a good pitcher, his ERA is 4.5, whatever. Yes, maybe you overpaid for him a little bit, but he's going to be very integral to your success for the rest of the 2024 season and also during the playoffs. But getting into what Yusei Kikuchi said, he was initially very upset about the trade news. It's a business thing. Obviously, if the Toronto Blue Jays were competing, Yusei Kikuchi would not be traded, not even in talks of being traded. Just tough that the Toronto Blue Jays ended up having to sell at this trade deadline. But I got a couple tweets here from Hazel May. So pitching coach Pete Walker told me Yusei Kikuchi is finally at peace with the reality that he will be traded. That was coming on the Monday. And John Schneider said Yusei Kikuchi is so routine oriented that the uncertainty of this situation, not knowing where he was going, has weighed on him, but he is in a good spot now. Maybe you throw a little bit of merit into the Yusei Kikuchi drop off. Obviously, all these trade rumors circulating. It's hard to be an MLB player, and if you go on any social media ever, you're probably going to see some sort of trade rumor about you. So definitely not the greatest for Yusei Kikuchi in that mental state. Again, continuing on from Hazel May, obviously going to the Astros, they're a contender. It shows how much they value me as an athlete. This is from Yusei Kikuchi himself, and that's something you feel good about. So at least with Yusei Kikuchi, you see the haul he got back. That is literally something, like you said, something to feel good about. You get that much traded in a deal for you. You got to understand how much they value you. You got to understand that they do see the bright spots in you. And Toronto Blue Jays fans all see the value in Yusei Kikuchi. The Houston Astros eventually, won't take very long, probably only a couple starts. They're going to see the value that they get in Yusei Kikuchi.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It sort of just it does upset me. I've loved Yusei Kikuchi, and it was tough to see him go. Just to see him sort of get shipped off into the distance. I don't know. It was just brutal. It needed to happen. We all knew it was going to happen. We talked to Johnny from Gate 14 about that as well. Just I think all of us coming as a collective and being like, all right, well, we know what's going to happen here. And sure enough, that's what happened.
Yeah, that trade was like me from 3-point range, just automatic. Like it was just going to happen.
Yeah, okay. I don't know if anybody's seen Carter play basketball, but back in the day, we used to do a 3-point contest, and I do believe I had the best time, Carter. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, it happened one time when it was raining when we were doing that. So, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm just not made for the elements. So, it's like my my rain or shine stats. It's like I'm hitting like 600 when it's a sunny day, but as soon as it's raining, good luck. Like I'm horrendous. I'm like Martin Maldonado out there.
For those of you listening and not watching, I rolled my eyes heavily at that. No, you know what? It is tough to see at the end of the day, but it is what it is. It had to be done. This is the position this team put them in, themselves in, so this is where we are. We're going to take a quick break. We do want to get into sort of what happened in this past series against the Orioles. We are going to keep you guys up to date on still, what happened. It might not be as in-depth as it was, as there's lots more to talk about, probably way more interesting stuff than the Blue Jays losing, but we will get into that. And then, we still got a ton more coming for you guys in the next week or so here with the trade deadline. So keep in tune for all of that.
Just one more thing before we do head out. Locked On 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Today, Amazon Fire TV's channel app, whether it's the MLB, NFL, NHL. I'm missing one, but whatever. You already know. 4 major sports, college sports, WNBA, whatever it is. Perfect opportunity to check out expert analysis over there. It's 24/7, so you can tune in at any time throughout the day. If you're working nights or working days, if you're just staying up late like we tend to do on this podcast, perfect opportunity to check out expert analysis. So, we're going to get into some little bit of baseball. Jackson Holiday, Grand Slam. Hate to see it, but we'll get into a little bit of an in-depth analysis here coming up.
Today's episode brought to you by Game Time. As you guys know, Game Time helps us book all of our tickets wherever we go because it is the easiest way to do it. The easiest and cheapest, I should say. I shouldn't leave that out because they are the cheapest as well. They have zone deals, flash deals. Like literally anytime you go on, there's going to be a deal of some sort happening. So that's why, I mean, Game Time's just so tough to beat. The view from the seat is actually the most important thing that I think I need to address because it allowed us to see exactly where we were going to sit, the exact view from our seat. It couldn't have been better. We wanted to sit when we went to Toronto all around the park, right? We wanted to take in everything, and Game Time helped us do that. They also obviously they have last minute deals as well. So that's another thing I sometimes forget to bring up. You can save up to 60% off by buying last minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater. I mean, pick something. It's on Game Time. They have the lowest price guaranteed, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So, Carter, obviously the Blue Jays lose this series. Nice. Yeah. Orioles, I started thinking, oh, whatever. It's stupid. Anyway, they lose the series to the Orioles 3-1. Obviously, Monday, they had the doubleheader because of the makeup game. First game, they lose 11-5. Second game, they win 8-4, surprisingly. That I believe that was the first game was the game that Justin Turner got removed from because of the trade as well. And then Tuesday, they lose 6-2. And Wednesday, yesterday, they lose 10-4 with, of course, what Carter said, the Jackson Holiday home run, which honestly, pretty electric to see the kid going hard. I hate this dude. I hate to say that, but I mean, you know, when one of these prospects that's so highly touted comes up and has a good game after the horrible first stint he had in the MLB, you sort of gotta love it. Sort of like what Addison Barger was able to do this series as well. 2 home runs for Addison Barger. You're sort of starting to see him sort of catch some fire here, so that's great to see as well. Carter, I don't know, anything besides those two things that were sort of standouts for you in this series?
Just Vladdy just obviously going crazy, and that's just not necessarily from this series, but that's since the All-Star break. Just wanted to go over Vladdy's stats just overall in this season. He's hitting .311, 21 home runs, 70 RBIs, and that's with just an offense that looked anemic in the first 2.5 months of the season. OPS over 900 now, 906 OPS. I can go into his last 7 stats quick because they're just, I mean, might as well. They're ridiculous. 538 average, 606 on base percentage, a slugging over 1,000, 1.077, just hitting a million home runs, just hitting the ball so hard. So fun to watch Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Had to throw him in just because obviously he's the best player on the Toronto Blue Jays. Jackson Holiday, first home run of his career. Just want to touch on that. He's hitting .77. That's how bad his first stint was with in the MLB. But a guy that's, I think he's 20 or he might be 21 years old now, but he's a very young prospect. Number 1, obviously, in the league. So Baltimore Orioles, they traded Connor Norby, and they still have a million prospects that they could give away or just have in the MLB team on their MLB roster. Just absolutely insane. You said Addison Barger, and there's a lot of comparisons from Joey Loperfido to Addison Barger, which again, more of a offensive stat, not as much defensively. Joey Loperfido is a lot better defensively than Addison Barger is, but more free swingers, guys that just have very electric swing very hard at the baseball. Joey Loperfido's barrel rate is a little bit better than Addison Barger's, but yeah, Addison Barger 2 home runs in this series and not against bums either. The second one being off Grayson Rodriguez, a very good pitcher. If you can get Addison Barger to heat up a little bit, show you a little bit of stuff going into the next season, that's exactly what you want from that guy. He can play third base. Again, not going to provide the best defense necessarily. Maybe you want him in the field. You have some opportunity here to experiment with Addison Barger, and that's exactly what you should do. That you want offense, you want some upside in the bat, and that Addison Barger will give you that. You want him to get on base more consistently. But again, Addison Barger has not had a lot of games in the MLB. He's probably sitting around 30 games right now in his MLB career. Hit his first home run, obviously, over this weekend. Definitely nice to see. Other than that, like George Springer has, again, he's still playing good baseball, but he's kind of returned to just how we thought George Springer would be in 2024, kind of like a 265 hitter, going to give you power from time to time. Other than that, Yariel Rodriguez, touch on him a little bit. Horrific start. Not sure what happened there.
Yeah, that was a blow up. Yeah.
Obviously, we went over that a little bit. James McCann gets hit in the face. Not great. Just, I guess I'll go over that stat line real quick. I know he pitched 0.2 innings off the top of my head, gave up 4 earned runs. Going to try to pull it up here again.
Yeah, I got it
4
right
games. Yeah, perfect. 4 games, 3 days. just a lot of baseball for the Toronto Blue Jays in a very busy time of the year.
Yeah, it was. It was a very busy time of the year, and for 4 of these games to happen with a day with a doubleheader is just insane. So Yariel Rodriguez, obviously 1-3 on the season, pitched 2/3 innings, gave up 1 hit, 4 runs, 3 earned runs, 1 K, 4 walks. Yeah. We had obviously hit batter as well. Yeah, it was horrific to say the absolute least. When McCann got hit in the face there, Carter, oh my God, that guy was gushing more blood than I've ever seen in my life. I thought I was watching like an R-rated, I don't know, like if any of you have seen the newest Deadpool movie, that's exactly what I thought was going on out there. People were just taking heads, and obviously Yariel, whatever, it was what it was. It looked like Nate Pearson from his latest game out there, where he's just hitting people in the heads, getting tossed. I mean, it was devastating for the Blue Jays sort of pitching duo that day. That was just insane. But yeah, I don't know, Carter. Overall, I mean, I don't take much stock in wins or losses. I want to see specific guys' performance. Great from Addison Barger, terrible from Yariel Rodriguez, and Vladdy, I mean, just continues to be an absolute beast at the dish. Besides that, my guy, I don't have a ton. I mean, we could go game by game, but let us know. Do you guys care if we go game by game, or you just want sort of who's hot, who's not, what's going on? You guys can let us know in the comments section. Carter, anything else from you?
Okay, I know we got to throw some negativity in the Toronto Blue Jays podcast. We used to be so negative. Now we've been a little bit positive. Let's just throw some negativity in here. Right. Yariel Rodriguez is one of the worst pitchers I have ever seen with my 2 eyes. Again, this bullpen is so depleted. We've traded away so many assets, but this guy is horrendous, man. Like, he had a 6.5 ERA in the minor leagues, and now he's going to the MLB team, and he's just giving up moonballs. He's giving up hard contact. He's literally just a human pitching machine out there. And maybe that's where Yariel Rodriguez learned his start from. Yariel Rodriguez comes up, gets pulled up to the team, and just is horrendous. Their names are too close. I don't like it. That's all I'm going to say about Yariel Rodriguez. I'll just go encapsulate his season with the Toronto Blue Jays just in one game. So obviously he did pitch in today's game. 2 games of the series, the first game and the last game, just horrible watches. Like, the Blue Jays were it looked like a AAA team playing a Major League team. Absolutely terrible to watch. But again, you kind of know where the Toronto Blue Jays are at. It's tough to get as emotional as we used to get about them, just looking at where they are in the season. But Yariel Rodriguez today, 1 inning pitched, 3 hits given up, 5 earned runs, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks, a home run, taking his ERA up to 9.61 and his whip up to 1.83. It's just bad.
Carter, again, my question is, after hearing this, me or you goes out there. We get a max of whatever, so many pitches or something. And do you think that you could put up a better line than that, even luckily, than what he did? I feel like maybe.
See, Yariel Rodriguez is definitely better than me. That's not, I'm not going to start throwing stuff at the wall here. He's definitely a better pitcher than I am. But, you don't see a lot of guys throwing, 65, 70 in the league. And that's topping out. Maybe I'm throwing some EFIS pitches in there. You get Ernie Clement. I think he only gave up 1 run in his 1 inning of work. So it's definitely not unfathomable to see. I'm giving it to us. I'm going to hope that we don't give up 5 earned runs in 1 inning. We get them with a little bit of the changeup, the Bully 12-6, as I've already brought up on this podcast. It's something that hitters aren't used to seeing. But yeah, I mean, we definitely could. Again, we could also get launched off of every single at bat, and we're also literally the definitions of human pitching machines. We're just throwing in the home run derby. That's kind of how we're throwing. But again, maybe you get 1 out of 10 games, 2 out of 10 games that we're putting the hitters on their heels a little bit, and maybe we do have better lines than Yariel Rodriguez, but maybe that's something the Blue Jays should look into. You don't have any bullpen arms anyway. Just sign people off the street. Screw it. Let's just throw some random guys in here, especially for the games that are out of hand. You get down 8-0 early in the game. Screw it. Let's just get Jimbo off in section 518 at the Rogers Center. Get him down here and just see what he can do.
I said, just give me a call. I'll fly myself out. I'll pitch for free for 1 inning. If I give up a run, I don't know, I get banished from Rogers forever or something. And if I don't give up a run, I get season tickets. Let's make it happen.
I would not take that deal. That's horrendous. You're going to give up 1 million runs, and you're going to be banned from the Rogers
Center. I'm giving up no
Center.
runs, Carter. No runs. I believe in my skills here. Just before we get going, guys, we want to thank you guys for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. For your second listen, enjoy Locked On MLB Podcast. Host Paul Sullivan, a.k.a. Sully, is here daily to provide national expertise with his trademark humor to help you get ready for the MLB playoffs here in the dog days of summer. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day on Locked On MLB. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Again, as we always say, really appreciate all the support. You guys have been absolutely killing it lately. Keep that up. We got so much more content. We want to go into these prospects. We know how much you guys like these guys and like these trades that were made. So we're gonna hammer down on these guys. See what we can find out. See what we think is going to happen in the season or seasons to come with some of these guys. Carter, anything else before we sort of, peace out of here? Maybe get some sleep for once.
For sure. Just leave comments on like what you guys kind of want to see. Obviously, we're gonna have a lot of trade deadline stuff to go over for the next couple of weeks. But like going down into the later games of the season, definitely gonna go back to like our game recap stuff like that. But right now, I feel like just from our perspective, the trade deadline is a lot more prominent, a lot more fun to talk about rather than the Toronto Blue Jays getting dog walked in a 4-game series against the Baltimore Orioles. But let us know if you guys want us to keep covering the games. We'll definitely do that. And we're not going to just completely stop doing that no matter what, even with the trade deadline stuff. We're going to talk about it, just probably not as in depth as we used to. But overall, yeah, just let us know. Comments, subscriptions, the trade deadline, just the entire process of it. A lot of fun for us, obviously. Very busy, lots of things to talk about, which is great to actually talk about some things that we're positive about rather than just being negative and pissed off on this podcast every single time. So the sport has been absolutely crazy. The debates, all the discussions we've had with the people, it's been fun to see different perspectives, how people view trades. If they like it, they hate it, how they view Ross Atkins. That's going to be another topic that we talk about endlessly on this podcast. But thank you to the fans. Thank you to the people watching, continuing to watch the Toronto Blue Jays, even though they might be one of the worst baseball teams I've seen in a very long time. We appreciate you guys hanging along for the ride.